Cool.
Okay, so we're gonna start out you. Alright, Nikhila, you ready?
Okay.
You'll be fine, guys. Just start. Okay. Okay.
So I'm going to start now.
We'll clap.
As the leader of the affirmative team, I strongly affirm today's resolution that the United States federal government should increase funding for space exploration. Now, as a brief on-time roadmap, I'll first be going over the criterion of today's debate before moving on to the definitions, the plan, and the affirmative team's two main contentions. And with that, please start time. So the affirmative team defines the United States federal government as the United States federal government, increase as to expand, funding as money that is provided, and space exploration as an ongoing discovery or exploration of celestial structures in outer space. And in today's debate, we will be mainly focusing on research. We are setting the criterion as utilitarianism, or the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people, and our plan is that the United States federal government should increase funding for space exploration using funding from the failed F-35 fighter jet program, which currently has $400 billion invested in it, as soon as possible. This moves us right on into our two contentions, and our first contention is that of the economy. Yes?
So where exactly are you investing the money? In NASA, in private corporations? Where's the money going?
In NASA and private corporations.
NASA and private corporations? Are you doing that through subsidies? Or?
No.
Spencer?
So your plan takes funding from the F-35 program and gives it to space exploration.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So our first contention is that of the economy. So for every $1 the United States spends on space exploration, we gain $8 in benefits according to Freakonomics. If we invest in companies such as SpaceX and agencies such as NASA, we receive innovative ideas and different technological advancements that go back into our society that can then benefit our people and things like that. And space exploration also creates many jobs, which help the economy. So the NASA Ames Research Center created about 5,300 jobs and $877 million in total annual economic activity in 2009 in the Bay Area alone, and 8,400 jobs and $1.3 billion of annual economic activity nationally. So we can see that. Yes.
But if you're taking money away from this other program, doesn't that other program also provide jobs and benefits?
I mean, it's a failed fighter jet program, so nothing's happening in it.
Actually, the F-35 fighter jet program is currently active in Germany.
Well,
So they're creating jobs in the United States and in Germany.
this one's the failed one.
No, it's not, Nikhila. Guys, keep going.
Alright.
This is not a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
So, according to NASA, 7,000 jobs have been supported by the $2.5 billion Mars rover Curiosity project, and not just NASA, but at companies like Lockheed Martin, which is a bicycle company in Texas. So we can see that people who work, it's not only people who work for these agencies such as NASA that are getting benefit by investing in space exploration, but it's individuals who work for other companies that are not exactly space exploration companies. And also, we have benefits. Investing in space exploration companies creates benefits for the United States, for Americans. So for example, the NASA's Biomedical Application Center has reduced the cost of medical care in hopes to provide accessible medical care for Americans of low socioeconomic standards and individuals in developing countries. So we can see how NASA not only benefits Americans, but people in developing countries as well. And our second contention is that of international corporations. So for these space exploration projects to work and for them to develop, international cooperation is required in many instances. So, for example, the International Space Station was founded by 15 nations, including the United States, and is a prime example of international collaboration and success. Space agency leaders around the world claim that international corporations are imperative for success when it comes to space exploration and scientific advancements. So the international cooperation will not only help the United States gain much needed allies, but will also help us exercise our soft power. So soft power has been one of the key elements for peace between the United States and other countries, and will continue to yield peace if we exercise it in areas beyond politics, so in areas such as space exploration. And so for these two reasons, I strongly affirm today's resolution that the United States federal government should increase funding for space exploration. Thank you.
So the order is going to be 4 off. One of them is not really an off, but it's probably simpler if you floor it as if it's an off. And then case.
Am I gonna feel like Steven when you kick this PP in the LOR?
What?
Nothing. Keep going.
Oh,
Wait, did he actually do that?
I've since learned that you're supposed to kick into the MO, i.e. your speech. So.
Yeah. Alright, go ahead.
Okay. So the first off is extra topicality. Our interpretation is going to be that the resolution only includes an increase in funding for space exploration. This means the violation is that by cutting funding for the F-35 in order to fund space exploration, the affirmative plan goes beyond the resolution. The third is subpoint C of the standards. The first standard is ground. If the affirmative can always change their advocacy and add things to their advocacy in ways that are not predictable and that do not follow the resolution, this means that they would always be in a position to win every debate because they can always spike against the disadvantage, or they can always spike against negative ground. The second standard is going to be predictability. This is the key internal link to education, because if debate is not predictable based on the resolution, there's no way for both sides to have educational access to the debate. This means that if by them expanding beyond the resolution, they make the debate unpredictable, and they make the negative not know what it's going to be debating about, this means the negative would always lose, which means that there's no fairness in debate, and it also means that debate would not be educational. Thus, the voters are fairness and education. Extra topicality is an a priori issue, which means that if you believe that their plan is extra topical, that's a reason to vote against them in the first place, even if you believe that it's overall a good idea. However, the next argument is going to be that the status quo solves their impacts. This is the one that's not really an off. The first argument is SpaceX. SpaceX is a company funded by Elon Musk. It's currently receiving about $500 million a year in funding from NASA for the purposes of delivering cargo to the International Space Station. There's no reason to believe that the SpaceX would not be able to take over for some of the things that NASA is currently doing. This is a reason why the status quo is solving. Even if there are these benefits to space exploration, SpaceX is an independent company that is capable of acquiring those benefits on its own, independent of the affirmative plan. The second argument is Mars One. Mars One is a company centered in, I believe, the Netherlands that is specifically targeted towards going towards Mars. This means that the status quo, and specifically the private sector, is already doing many of the things that their affirmative plan seeks to do, which means there's no unique benefit to government funding of space exploration. However, the third, probably the most important argument, is India. India has plans to colonize Mars by 2018, as well as other forms of space exploration, such as asteroids and the moon. NASA itself indicates that India has a quality of technology that is comparable to its own. Furthermore, India is less militaristic in image than NASA, which means that other countries are far more willing to work with it. This means that India is already solving all of these impacts. Our first disadvantage, our only disadvantage, is the space race. The inherency of the United States is perceived as declining in terms of its influence in space, that the United States is currently shifting towards other avenues of power, such as hard power, soft power, public diplomacy, and the United States is no longer as active in space as it has been in the past, because it is leaving space to other people and other organizations. The links. First, this casts an aggressive United States image. The United States is constantly funding new research. It looks like the United States is gearing up for a new round of colonization, for a new round of sending out spaceships, for a new round of U.S. imperialism. Second, this is perceived as a shift away from the U.S. policy of leaving space to other people. And third, this would crowd out other countries like China that are currently trying to invest in the space sector. Let's look at the impacts. The first impact is Russia. United States relations with Russia are currently on the brink of the status quo because of conflicts over the war in Ukraine. This means that you have a risk of collapsing collaboration with Russia. The impact of collapsing collaboration with Russia is nuclear war. Currently, Russia does not have very good safeguards on its nuclear weapons. Only one commander is required to launch, and they're not even very high up in the hierarchy. This means that if the United States and Russia stop collaborating on space issues, that leaves the possibility that they wouldn't collaborate if one of their satellites detected a launch, and they would go directly to launching a nuclear weapon, which would escalate and lead to extinction. The second impact is satellites, however. If you pass the affirmative plan, it means the United States is shifting towards its more aggressive foreign policy in space, which probably means that overall people would be, which probably means people would fear the United States would be starting to invest in space weapons. This is something that the United States and most other countries have agreed not to do since the 1960s. This means that if people are afraid the United States is going to engage in space weapons, or in fact, if the United States does engage in space weapons development, that would encourage other countries to do so. The impact of this is that satellites get shot out of the sky, which is the goal of space weapons. And when satellites get shot out of the sky, they tend to create these escalating cascades of debris that are called something syndrome. I forget what they're called. And the impact of that is that it cuts off our access to space because you literally have floating clouds of debris above the Earth that prevent us from being able to send anything into space, which is probably pretty bad. Onto the counterplan. The United States federal government should cut all current funding for plans to leave the Earth's orbit. The United States federal government should cut all current funding for plans to leave the Earth's orbit. Conditional. Competition. First, this counterplan is usually exclusive because your plan creates a new form of funding for these things, which means that cutting all funding is not something you can do at the same time. This means that the perm would be severance. The second argument is solvency. Specifically, we're going to avoid the disadvantage because if the United States ends all of its current plans to leave the Earth's orbit, that means that it's shifting and leaving it to other people. This means India and other countries would fill in and solve your affirmative case, and also need to avoid a space race. On to case. So first, they say that they help the economy. The first response is there is no immediate benefit. The F-35, even if it is a failed program, is injecting cash into the economy. They double-turn themselves because they say that space funds the Lockheed Martin program. Well, Lockheed Martin is the company that is investing in the F-35. So either Lockheed Martin is good, in which case the status quo is fine, or Lockheed Martin is bad, in which case space is probably investing in bad companies. The next argument I want, however, is that the disadvantage turns the case. This means that if there is a space race and there is a war, that would inevitably cause economic cost, which turns this contention. On their second contention about international cooperation, the main argument is going to be that an international space race is terrible for cooperation. This means that if their plan moves to a shift towards shifts to a perception that the United States is once again pursuing an aggressive policy in space, as it did during the 60s, this would inevitably kill international cooperation because nobody believes that the United States has the right motivations. The second argument, however, is soft power is not key. The impact of this argument is that we have soft power, but there's no reason to believe that soft power is important. The reason people listen to the United States is because of hard power, because we have nuclear weapons and tanks and bases and bombs. And soft power is just this wishy-washy concept that was invented by a philosopher and probably doesn't mean anything. This means there's no impact to their second contention. For all these reasons, we strongly urge negative.
I really want to be MGC right now. I really want to be MGC.
I am
Okay,
going to
good.
fail this speech.
Did you write anything down?
Do you guys know
Yeah.
that Daenerys' dad is in jail?
What?
She doesn't know what she's talking
I
about.
would really like to be MG2 right now.
Can I not? Wait, what?
I
don't
don't
even
know.
know-
I don't even have to
A lot
say
of
to half of this. I have nothing to say to half of this. Okay, wait.
For you.
No.
What channel me?
Good job asking on the status, by the way. Proud of you.
What is it?
Do I? Okay. I have to find my condo bad thing.
Okay, take a minute and find your theory. I can do it. I believe it.
How are you on condo, Meredith?
Me? I know how to kick it.
Solid.
Please don't kick it, Meredith. I will hate you forever.
I know how to
What
do
do I
condo
dress
good
first?
theories. I'll go write some spikes
What do I
or
dress?
arguments.
Should I address this whole functionality thing first, or do I just
Yeah, go condo first, then extra T, then the status, then your news.
Okay. Then I don't CP.
When you said running condo,
Okay.
Well, what else is she gonna run? Actually,
I mean,
arguments.
Case.
Well, yeah. But she needs to practice condo too.
okay, so the order is condo, then what?
Extra topicality, and then Av case, neg case.
Or maybe he's that case.
Go
okay,
Nick
fine,
first.
that case, that case. Okay.
So basically the same order as you, Spencer, except for she added condo at the beginning.
Sweet. Okay. Let's go.
Okay. As a member of the affirmative team, I strongly affirm today's resolution that the USFG should increase funding for space exploration. All right, so first of all, the negation team brought up a counterplan that is conditional. And conditionality is bad for several reasons. Now, for example, a counterplan can actually be kicked in the MOC or the LOR, which means that basically they're just going to be changing their advocacy, which is unfair to the affirmative team for several reasons. One, because of okay, I didn't even know. Wait. Okay, so conditionality is bad because one, it's abusive to us because either I spend a lot of time refuting this counterplan and then the member of the opposition simply drops it and my time has been wasted refuting this, or two, I drop this counterplan and because it's conditional and then the member of the opposition brings it up again and gets a lot of impacts out of that, and then they could win the round possibly on this conditional counterplan, which is abusive to the affirmative team. So the affirmative team always has to defend the plan that they've come up with. And now by having a conditional counterplan, the negation team doesn't have the same obligation to defend their counterplan. They can simply kick it in the second negation speech. So this basically this goes against education, the standards of education and fairness in today's debate because it makes the debate less educational and less fair for both teams in the round, and so I strongly urge the judge to vote for us on the issue of conditionality. Moving on to address extra topicality. So basically the first negation speaker said that the affirmative team actually goes beyond the resolution by cutting funding from the F-35 fighter jet program. So the affirmative team actually used this F-35 jet because we're actually still affirming the resolution because we are increasing funding for space exploration in several areas through NASA and in private corporations, and so we simply used a funding source, F-35. So we mentioned this funding source as part of our plan. So we're not actually going beyond the resolution. We're not introducing any new elements at all that the negation team might be unprepared for. So moving on to address the negation team's case, their first contention is about SpaceX, how they have how the status quo is already solving. However, by passing the affirmative team's plan, we're actually going to be able to invest in other companies like SpaceX and bring even more economic profit to America. So moving on to address the second negation point, which is about Mars One, so that they're already doing unique benefit. I'll take your questions later if I have time. All right, so is this a foreign company? Okay, so anyways, this is a foreign company and it's not really relevant to today's round because today we're talking about the U.S. federal government and the impacts of the U.S. federal government investing in these different space companies rather than foreign governments doing that. So moving on to address the third negation point, which is about India, which is going to colonize Mars by 2018. What was the point for this? That they're just
India already solves, meaning
India's
that
already solved.
affirmative government action is unnecessary.
Okay, so once again, one, India is irrelevant to today's round, but two, we're actually space exploration extends beyond Mars, beyond just colonizing Mars. So the affirmative team's plan will actually be able to not just only look at Mars, but to also look at space in other ways. Moving on to address the negation team's disad to the affirmative team's plan, which is basically about the space race. That the U.S. is currently not perceived as active in space, but by in passing the affirmative team's plan, we're going to make the U.S. appear more aggressive. As we mentioned before in the affirmative case, my partner mentioned before, the U.S. would actually, by investing in these companies, we're actually going to be able to increase international collaboration, which will not actually increase the U.S.'s aggressive image, and so the U.S. would actually appear as cooperative to these other countries, willing to work together with other countries on these very important issues of space exploration.
Moving on to address the affirmative team's case. So the first point was about economy, that basically by investing in by passing the affirmative team's plan, we're going to be having a lot of economic benefit. For example, my partner mentioned a lot of statistics from economics and from the NASA Ames Research Center. Now, what the first affirmative negation speaker said was that the F-35 has already injected cash into the economy. However, as my partner mentioned, this is a failed program, so this refutation actually doesn't address the point that by investing in NASA and other space companies, we're actually going to be getting a lot of economic benefits, significant economic benefits, so that people can provide for their families and for themselves, and so that we can decrease the amount of people in the cycle of poverty, and we can actually have a lot of economic benefit from this. They also mentioned how Lockheed Martin can either be good or bad. Okay, moving on. So to address the second affirmative point, which is basically about international collaboration, that by investing in these companies, we're actually going to be increasing international collaboration, because a lot of these really large space projects are done internationally, only done by international cooperation. And so, what an effect of this is that we're actually going to be increasing our soft power. Now, what the negation speaker said to this is that people only listen to the United States because we have hard power. However, this is the exact reason why we need to pass the affirmative team's plan, because we need to increase soft power so that instead of just relying solely on hard power, we have another weapon in our arsenal to use too, because soft power is important. If hard power ever fails, we can rely on soft power instead. Okay. So for these reasons, I strongly affirm today's resolution that the USFG should increase funding for space exploration. Thank you.
Hey, Meredith, can you go for extra tea?
Yeah.
Thank
My
you.
soul. Where's my highlighter?
This should not take 2 pages front and back
Sorry, Lily.
to cover all of the case. Spencer,
Sorry, Lily.
4 off is not cool.
Wait, what did I
Where's
do?
my water bottle? I don't know, you can use mine.
Lily's
Too
mad
many
at you.
too many points. Took 2 pages front and back.
Where's my water bottle, guys?
Also, I really wanted to do Daenerys' speech.
I'm sorry, Lily. Where's your water bottle, Lily? You should have done my speech. I want to do Dany's speech too. It's okay.
It's good practice, though. Because,
No. Daeny needs it more than I do. That was so depressing. What? My speech? No, I was like, Daeny needs it more than I do because I'm leaving the most. That's depressing. Oh. Alright. I was gonna say that's insulting, but I'm not really insulting. Okay. We're just gonna be, I'm gonna go conditionality bad, talk about conditionality is good, go on to the extra topicality, then go on to the disadvantages Spencer brought up, then go on to the affirmative case. Sorry, Lily.
have we all just agreed to go again, or you?
Well, I mean, I'll talk about it.
Whatever. Take the kind of line if you want.
Oh.
Do what's in your heart.
I mean, she didn't put disads on it.
Because I forgot. It was like, it's too late.
I mean, it kind of goes in with the other stuff, but I'll talk about it.
Sure.
It's okay, Daeny.
Alright.
You got most
I'll
of
go, okay. I'll do conditionality, extra topicality, counter plan and why it solves better, then get into status quo, then enjoy disad. Our second disad kind of goes along with the counter plan.
Do we have 2 disads?
The one you said don't flow as a disad, I flowed as a disad, so it's now a disad.
Okay, sounds good.
So
Alright.
you're going condo, extra topicality, status quo solves, space race, then CP? And then F?
I'll signpost.
Okay. Go in that order, because that's the order my page is in.
Alright. I probably got something to do. Okay. First thing, they only had one standard for why conditionality is bad. A reason why we can't set aside the counterplan they do in our speeches to focus on bigger and better points of offense. Now, the only thing I talked about here was how they're going to waste time on it. But this is non-unique. Spencer also wasted about a minute of his LOC talking about the counterplan. So if we kick it now, there's no problem. And there's no issue reason why we couldn't kick the counterplan, because we also wasted time on it. So the only argument they hear is that it's abusive somehow because we're not doing the same thing they are. Again, Spencer spent time on it, so there's no issue here. Now, second thing is the extra topicality. Now, Spencer talked about how if you cut the funding, if you're cutting funding somewhere else, then it's unpredictable. We can't predict what you're going to do. Now, the issue here is that they said, oh, it doesn't matter because just in our plan, we're not doing something extra. But the problem is that in theory and in the specificity behind this sort of argument in general shouldn't be allowed in the debate space. Because this argument in particular means that what they're doing is saying we can get benefits off of something outside the resolution. It doesn't matter if their certain issue doesn't hugely affect their points. They could have gotten benefits off it, and the fact they could have gotten benefits off of it or put benefits on the MGC means that they have the capability to get a far more offense off something extra topical. Meaning that we have no way to win if they're going extra topical, and we have no way to win if they're just doing whatever they want. If they can slap parts onto the resolution and slap parts onto their plan, ooh, this wants to kill me, and slap parts onto their plan, we have no way to win, and that's really unfair. So vote for us on education and fairness. Their only response to this was that they use funding because they're affirming the resolution. Sure, they can affirm the resolution, but they can't affirm the resolution by doing actions that are explicitly outside the resolution. Cutting funding is not part of the resolution to increase funding. Moving on to DISAT. Status quo solves. We have 3 things on this. First, SpaceX. SpaceX is investing $500 million in expanding beyond satellites and expanding beyond the United States. For example, on March 1st, they launched a Dragon satellite carrying dozens of tons into space to the International Space Station. Impact 1, soft power, which we talked about. We expand our soft power, and we do it in a less militaristic sense. Why? Because NASA has the stimuli of the space program, and NASA has the stimuli of the Cold War that we had with Russia, in which the United States spent billions of dollars investing in military weapons because we saw space as a signal of military might and a signal of military dominance. In other words, Sputnik in 1957, a satellite that was almost exactly the space exploration they want to launch, sparked a revolution that we wasted a lot of money on. So if we don't do this, if we have SpaceX do it instead as they're already doing, we solve far better in the status quo. Second is Mars One. Mars One based in Netherlands. It has huge amounts of profit and it's already expanding into Mars to get all sorts of benefits, rare earth metals, things like this that we can use for silicon, for computers, and other benefits. So again, Mars One solves this. It's a foreign company. It doesn't matter. Obviously, it's getting global benefits. Global benefits fall into utilitarianism. We don't need to take the affirmative plan if someone else is already doing it. The only refutation to our SpaceX point was that it gives economic profit to the United States. Again, SpaceX does give economic profit, but there's a conceptual link here that they dropped, which is that if people perceive NASA to be building up and NASA as the federal government to be building up and creating military weapons by going into space, then we had a conceptual link that leads Russia to attack us. Now, the next thing we talked about is India. So India obviously is investing in asteroids, moon technology, and NASA itself said that India has almost as good technology as NASA does. Now, they said this is, we can get to space in other ways. This doesn't matter because India is already doing it. Why does the federal government in the United States have to waste money and time doing it if someone else is already doing it? And as an added benefit, India has far less development in that country and far fewer people who are below the poverty line. So if you have more money going through the economy in that country, and if you have them spending more money on space exploration in that country, people that need the jobs more than we do. So even if you buy that creates jobs by doing space exploration, then obviously India needs the jobs far more than we do. All right. Moving on to...
misspoke.
Sure.
Did you just say that India has more people below the poverty line? I mean, less people below the poverty line in the United States? Or did
More,
you
I
say
think.
More?
You said
I
less.
think
less?
less.
I
Yeah.
meant more.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Second thing, counterplans us just that. We believe that we can get the most offense in this round by ending all future plans and all current plans to go into space exploration. Obviously, there's a huge conceptual link here, which is currently China is building up its military because of the United States' expansion into space. China expanded its current military budget at 10.1% last year to $144 billion. Russia is set to triple their military budget, expanding not only monetary waste, but exacerbating tensions with the United States. Tensions with Russia are really bad because Russia right now is working with us is supposed to be working with us to stop violence in Ukraine. But if we alienate Russia and cause them to have a military buildup, not only do we lead to increased risk of nuclear war, but we also lead to more deaths in Ukraine and more deaths all around the area. Now, the next, so obviously, if we end all these space programs, we completely destroy that conceptual link. We mean we're far more likely to work with Russia, far more likely to create peace in Ukraine, and far less likely to start a nuclear war with Russia after a second Cold War. Now, the only thing they refuted on this was that military and space was militaristic imperialism. They said that collaboration will happen. The problem is that there's a unilateral action, not an international action. Sure, if we were working with India, working with China, doing space exploration, sure, we could have a conceptual link there. But the issue here is that we're acting unilaterally as the United States alone to move into space. And that has a lot of dangerous ramifications that other countries are going to react to. Now, they also dropped our link about crowding out Russia. And I apologize. They also dropped our link about satellites being destroyed. Whenever you invest in space exploration, what happens is that you basically create more of a precedent to have space weapons. So what happens is that if you're going to space and you're not only violating treaties, we are also moving to space to destroy certain areas. Sorry, I don't understand this, they said. I don't Alright, tag in.
You break the taboo on investment in space weapons, which means that we all destroy all the satellites, and that means there's a huge roving cloud of debris that never allows us to get into space ever again.
So basically what happens is if we take certain actions to do space exploration, we break the taboo and set a precedent towards moving towards space weapons and and obviously space weapons would mean that we can destroy certain satellites roving around the Earth, which creates a huge cloud of debris. We can never get off the rock. So if we have environmental collapse, we can never move out to other areas and we can never have any space exploration ever again. Alright, moving on case. So the first point they talked about is how they're going to create jobs in the United States. Now we talked about status quo solves, and we talked about how their one link here, which is Lockheed Martin, is already contradicting their plans. Spencer talked about how Lockheed Martin is actually funding the F-35 fighter jet program, which they said is bad because they're cutting funding for its F-35 programs. So clearly Lockheed Martin's an ineffective actor. But beyond that, what happens is the cycle of poverty doesn't take precedence here, because again, SpaceX is solving in the United States. SpaceX is creating millions of jobs in the United States, $6.4 billion worth within the US. Huge amounts of benefits already done, but you don't have this conceptual link to NASA being militaristic and alienating Russia. Second point they talked about how we can international cooperation. I already talked about this. They're not going to work with us. They're going to freak out that we're using military weapons just like in 1957. They're going to militarize and they're going to attack us. For this, vote nay.
Meredith,
Oh my
I have
God.
so many things to say to that.
Yeah, so do I.
Do you realize how mad that made me?
Wait, what was the rock that you were talking about?
The Earth.
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 Oh, I was like,
What?
rock?
So I feel like you guys all think there's something very wrong with this neg, but I can't tell what it is yet.
No, I have stuff wrong with Meredith's speech specifically, and I wanted to attack your case in the first place.
I
We
mean,
don't
it's
like
kinda
tea.
naggy, but like, you know what you can do. Okay,
Meredith?
the order is going to be
I need water.
overview, condo bad, extra topicality, status quo solves, the affirmative case,
Meredith.
counterplan, and then dissa.
Major ones.
Basically, I'm just going overview and then reviewing each page. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Okay. A couple reasons you're going to be voting negative in today's debate. First of all, extra topicality is functionally conceded and comes first before any of the arguments on case. This means even if they win 100% of their condo bad shell, we probably outweigh them with the abuse of extra topicality, and probably means that we're going to be winning the round there first. Extra topicality comes first because the abuse of conditionality is based on our counterplan, and our counterplan comes from their plan. So if their abuse in the PMC by being extra topical is proven, then that's a reason why their abuse is going to come before ours, and the reason why we vote on extra topicality first. Next, on the impact way. First of all, prefer magnitude, which means that our case outweighs. Extinction is irreversible. There's no possibility to solve any other impacts once everyone goes extinct. Furthermore, magnitude is the only possible objective impact. It's not possible to weigh other impacts like probability, time frame are inherently subjective. The only possible way to weigh that is objective and that is comparable is going to be magnitude. Our case outweighs because the impact to our case is extinction of the human race, which is probably a bigger impact than helping the economy. The second argument is probability. Even if you don't believe the magnitude way, you still outweigh in probability because all of the links of our disadvantage are conceded as a reason why your plan causes a space race and extinction. Third argument is conceded impact defense. They've conceded a number of reasons why their impacts on case won't happen. They've conceded that soft power is not key to anything, which means that their second contention doesn't matter, and they've conceded that the United States is already investing in the economy. The world comparison right now is a world between where we spark a space race by investing and signaling a shift towards more aggressive space policy versus a counterplan where we eliminate all of that, step back, allow the status quo to solve the problem of space exploration, and furthermore, and prevent a space race. On to condo bad. My partner already said there's no reviews on this show because I already spent the day talking about the counterplan. There's no reason why I would spend more time talking about the counterplan, less time talking about the counterplan than they would answering it. Probably means there's no abuse on this piece of paper. Furthermore, you're always going to be voting on extra topicality first because the abuse is in the round. Furthermore, we never kicked the counterplan. We never kicked the counterplan is a reason why the abuse of the extra topicality shell is more significant. Onto extra topicality. They basically concede our standards. The only response is that they still affirm the resolution. My partner has already explained how this isn't how it works, that they can infinitely spike out of the negative ground, which would make the debate impossible to win. This is a reason why extra topicality is the largest theoretical view. On to status quo solves. They say a lot of these arguments are irrelevant because countries like India are not in the United States, but they're missing the point, which is that all of these arguments prove why there's already a way to solve these economic impacts in the status quo. Is a reason why their plan probably doesn't have any unique benefit. Onto their case. They mishandle the argument here that Lockheed Martin is either good or it's bad. And if it's good, then we're already investing in the F-35. The point is the F-35 program is fine. Even if it's a terrible program, it's still pouring money into the economy, which is a reason why there's no impact here. The second contention about international cooperation, we made the argument that soft power is not key. There was never a clear impact to what happens as a result of soft power. Furthermore, the space race turns its impact as long as their plan causes escalating space race and the development of space weapons. That's probably a reason that it's not very good for international cooperation. On to the counterplan. Overview on the counterplan. What the counterplan does is it allows our status quo solves arguments to have uniqueness and it prevents the disadvantage. Because now the world we are comparing is a world where the United States steps back completely and allows other countries like India, Russia, and China that already want to invest in space to take the lead, which allows us to solve all of their case impacts about the economy, all of their impacts about cooperation, while also preventing the possibility of a space race because the United States is stepping back entirely. You have conceded analysis about why United States intervention is specifically the thing that would lead people to think that there's going to be a space race. Onto the space race disadvantage, extend all of the conceded links as a unique reason why their plan is perceived as a shift towards a more aggressive United States policy. There's no risk to the case. The impacts of the disadvantage outweigh in magnitude. If there's any risk that their plan causes a space race, escalating extinction through the destruction of all satellites and a nuclear war with Russia, that's the reason why you reject their plan, even if you don't believe that we're winning on extra topicality. For all these reasons, we strongly urge a negative vote, and my battery is probably going to die in a second, so I will disconnect the plane.
Alright. Bye, Spencer.
Adios.
I'll be back.
Okay.
Actually, I'm just going to... Well, I'll watch the PMR and see if I can plug in while I'm listening. It's fine.
Alright.
Yeah, I think we are.
I think we're only gonna get like a view of
Why is it so
his
dark
shirt.
in there? It's really dark in this house. It's awkward.
Are you guys asking awkward questions again?
I was just wondering why it's dark inside his house.
Why don't you ask him?
And it's awkward.
Spencer,
Oh, there we go.
What's up?
why is it dark inside your house?
It's dark inside my house because no one turns lights on.
There we go.
No, but it's like
They're conserving energy.
no.
Okay. Cool. No, you're saying...
He died.
Alright, good, Nikhila.
I'm just gonna go. Okay, so as the leader of the affirmative team, I strongly affirm today's resolution that the United States federal government should increase funding for space exploration. Now, as a brief on-time roadmap, in my final speech, I'll first be going over voter issues or reasons why you judge should cast an affirmative ballot, and if time permits, I'll be going over the affirmative case once again. So our first voter issue is that of the criterion, utilitarianism. So the negation team barely mentioned the criterion utilitarianism, and the MO simply mentioned utilitarianism once in her speech, but the leader of opposition did not mention it at all. Their plan did not provide the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people. Therefore, they have no beneficial impacts on our society. Our second voter issue is that of conditional counterplans. So basically, as my partner mentioned before, if the negation team kicks their CP, then my partner and I will have just wasted our time today, which is extremely unfair to the affirmative team. And for that alone, you should cast an affirmative ballot. And our third voter issue is that of impacts. So obviously there is good and bad to every side, and today's debate, the negation team simply pointed out the bad in our plan and the bad in our resolution. And if we pass the affirmative team's plan, we will be creating both detrimental and beneficial impacts. But the important thing to remember is at least we will be creating some beneficial impacts. We're creating change. That's what we want to do. And if we pass the negation team's plan, we won't be doing anything. We'll only be letting the detrimental effects continue, which is very bad. And then our fourth voter issue is that of the cycle of poverty. So in the member of opposition's speech, she mentioned that the cycle of poverty did not have any weight in today's round, and something about SpaceX already helping the economy and impoverished individuals, so we shouldn't do anything. And so they're missing the point, because in the status quo, there are hundreds of thousands of Americans that are still impoverished despite all the efforts of space companies such as SpaceX and NASA. And investing in the affirmative team's plan will help them and will help the government. Yeah. All right. I really have nothing else to say. Okay. And so for these reasons, I strongly affirm today's resolution that the United States federal government should increase funding for space exploration.
Okay. Can I just do a couple of comments before you go, Lily? I just want to make a couple points. So first of all, I think you guys got a little thrown by like the off. You don't get thrown by how many arguments they have, because none of them are very complicated. The second thing is that the answer to the extra T is pretty simple. Because so what did you guys say to it?
I didn't know what to say to it because I was like, I just said something about how we're still affirming the resolution.
Right. So all you need to say to it is we're just providing. This is just a funding mechanism. It's not changing anything. This is it's no different than if we had said normal ways and means.
Okay.
We're just identifying the particular ways and means in which you're funding this program. As a neutral, you don't need to specify the funding source that much. The whole point is you just want to talk about whether or not it's good to pass, not that's why normal ways and means is usually a good place to say. It's we're doing how we normally do it. Okay, great. Now, oftentimes they'll want to say well, they haven't told us where they're going to get the funding from since blah blah blah. I mean, the idea is that we fund things how we fund things, right? You don't want to get into how things are funded. So all you need to do to answer their extra T shell is say we're just identifying the specific source of funding. It's no different than we said normal ways and means. Their extra T has no bearing in this round. We can completely drop it off the flow.
Okay.
Because they have not proven that they've lost anything by the fact that you specified this as the funding source.
Okay.
So that would be my first thing, is that you seem to have gotten thrown by that topicality shell when you really didn't need to, right? And so if you can just show that this is all that you are doing is identifying a funding source, you'll be able to link out of the theory and move on to case. So then you're doing plan versus counter plan. I think that your condo bad theory was pretty good, especially after you asked the status. You need to be more specific with how you're losing impact. What's the impact outside the round of the fact that they have conditional counter plans? Why is it going to be bad for you as affirmative if they can just run as many conditional advocacies as they want? Why does that lead to less fairness in debate in general? And then that's going to lead to less people doing debate because it's not fair.
Okay.
Right? And so you're going to want to hit home about the impacts outside the round. So you gave me standards, but you need to give me impacts off of those standards. That's what I'm missing here. So explain, how is this going to impact people doing debate in general? Because that's why, so for example, you didn't really raise it to something that is above the case level debate, right? So it's not something that I can evaluate. What you want to do is show me why it's more important, why we have to look at this conditionality, why it's so bad for them to have made this point, the counterplan conditional, and why we need to evaluate that before we even evaluate the case level. Because Spencer does a good job of explaining, well, our advocacy is we do first, we evaluate extra T first, so their conditionality arguments are not really that important because we win on this, right? So he made it the same level as case debate. So what you want to do is also elevate it. So I'm kind of comparing, well, which is the worst violation, the extra T or the conditionality, and why. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Lily, do you want to go into the stuff? I just wanted to go on to the theory things, not even really getting into case. I'm getting case stuff later. But do you want to respond to stuff?
Yeah, sure. What? Don't worry, the one I'm gonna crush is Meredith. It's
This
okay.
is why I don't do MO.
Revenge. And
It's
revenge.
fun that you get to collapse out of stuff and freak people out.
Or that. Okay. AF. Yeah, F-35 fighter jets are being used.
Yeah,
Don't,
I know.
Why are you putting it?
don't use it. Also,
Oh, it is? Yes,
yeah,
it
it's
is.
being used.
I read articles on it. had an article from
I
the
feel like
Sun
you
that
could have
said,
split up your first point into like investment good for some reason and then like jobs or something. I mean, overall the content was good, but it seemed a bit like rambly, stat after stat after stat after stat after stat. You definitely do need more impacts off of international cooperation. You could have tried to steal Spencer's impacts before he said them and say we're going to work with countries like Russia and the International Space Station and thus we're less likely to have nuclear war. And you would want some evidence of like how increasing funding to NASA or private corporations or whatever you're doing is going to help.
I don't see anything right.
What are you
Extinction.
Huh?
Nuclear war and then extinction.
You
We
say
said
there's no
something
link.
once to it.
Yeah, you just say there's no link because the link was tenuous at best.
Yeah.
Spencer.
Excuse me. I mean, the link is perceptual. The link looks like a shift in U.S. foreign policy.
Yeah. The link is North Korea is crazy, but I didn't have time to run that.
Exactly. Okay, your extra topicality was unnecessary and a waste of time.
I mean, it is extra topical.
It's a funding mechanism.
Yeah.
Funding mechanisms are the perfect place to hide extra topical plan provisions and all.
I mean, he wasn't wrong to run it. It was a good, and it was.
It gave him offense.
It gave him offense. He wasn't
Yeah.
wrong to run
Well,
it.
yeah,
It
but
was just pretty easy to defeat, is all.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't exactly know how to respond to it, but like,
Which is why I was going to run.
yeah, if you're gonna, I don't try running extra topicality much, but if you're gonna run it, talk about things like that they could be getting benefits off of or things that they're doing. Like, if they mention anything at all about getting a benefit from cutting funding, mention that, because they didn't really link in that much.
Yeah, I mean, the abuse is theoretical, and you can have that debate. It's not the greatest show in the world, but you know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Meredith. Yes,
I was
and
like, I don't know. They're not doing anything with it.
yeah, Meredith, in your speech, I literally wrote, "This is stupid."
Sorry.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, your status quo solves thing was, I guess, good. I mean,
Thanks.
it makes sense.
What was that part of the status quo?
What?
What was that part of that?
That was like a sort of a dissad, saying like you don't need the U.S. doing it because other companies and India are doing it. What?
I mean, the reason I said it was an off was because like there wasn't a solvency page to put it on, but it's really just the solvency.
Yeah, it's just sort of there. Let's see.
I mean, it's terminal defense.
I guess you could say so. Space race thing, cool. Some of your impacts are a little tenuous. A little. Just,
We're in evidence.
yeah, but I mean, if you can connect life to extinction nuclear war, I mean, yeah. Meredith never understand the satellites. It made perfect sense when he explained it, and you did not get it. Wow, good job. Okay, yeah, that's it. Okay, Daeny.
Sorry.
You actually did a very decent job.
Liz, like, good job.
Dany's face is like, what? Really?
Okay, your condo bad, you did need more, like,
Oh
links.
I was like,
You should have focused more
You
on
did
severance.
three.
You, like, said it in, like, 2 sentences without saying severance, and you could have used that as one, like,
yeah.
severing. And I feel like you had more than just those two
Okay.
written
Yeah.
down.
Didn't I
So-
give you 3?
What was the
I don't
third
know
one,
what my
though?
condo bag looks like. I looked
don't
at it and
remember
then I was
this.
like, I don't have time to read this and understand it.
Yeah, what was the third one we gave them? Condo bag.
It was time skew, prep skew,
Oh, yeah. Maybe it was prep skew.
pre-fiat group.
Who knows? Anyways, yeah, like Ms. Max said, for repeating extra topicality, you literally just say you link out of it.
Okay.
Let's see. You needed more explanation for repeating their first point of how investment from the United States government would help all of those, right? Because you want to be arguing that the U.S. should invest because all of these things are, like, not enough, so you need to be able to prove it's not enough or something, right? Nice thing saying going beyond Mars. Meredith, you did not address that. Daenerys said we can't just let India and Mars 101 not do it because they're just going to Mars, and space exploration is not just Mars.
There was no impact of it.
Well, they could have expanded on it in PMR, and you did not touch on it.
I don't want to work.
You're allowed to impact things you brought up before, Meredith.
Yeah, but you can PO it anyway.
But it's not a valid point of order, so the judge wouldn't buy it.
Anything's a valid point of order, especially with parent judges. Keep going.
It is at the very least defense to case, so it's an argument.
Let's see. Let's see what else to do. You definitely needed to refute their entire long space race thing. Not just like the first part. You need to refute all of the links and like deconnect them from all of their impacts.
Okay.
And I would suggest putting disades on the counter plan as well as running conduit back.
Okay, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I didn't write down their counterfeit because we have more space.
There is. New page. It's okay.
I would mess it up.
Daenerys, when in doubt, you can take another page. I promise it'll be okay. That is the most amusing excuse I've ever heard. Let's see. Refute the Lockheed Martin thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was like
Literally, with just an example. Okay, yeah. I
Wait,
understand what
is
you
that
said, but
really
they're,
like
loaded.
helping
I
with
was
the F-35 fighter jets? They said it was a bike company.
So
Lockheed
you-
Martin is
you-
our defense contractor. Lockheed
so-
Martin makes all our jets.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's why I was laughing during the PMC. Lockheed Martin is like a massive like
And
defense
why did you
contracting
say
company.
They are our
Because
defense
it said it was a bike
Bike.
company in Bakersfield, Texas.
It's
The internet
probably
lied to you, Nikhila.
no, it's probably a different company, to be honest.
I mean, there might be a bike company called Lockheed Martin.
Because they
but
said it
that's
was a
more
bike
something
company.
like
They
this.
did not say it was a defense contractor, and
No,
there could
it
be
was
two
not
different
defense.
ones.
It was a bike company in Bakersfield, Texas.
Yeah, I don't think that's the defense
Yeah,
contractor.
guys, look them up. They're literally the biggest defense contractor in the
Yeah,
world.
Lockheed Martin is definitely the biggest defense
But
contractor.
is it both though, or is
There's no bicycle company.
yeah? What is up with the bike company?